Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amy and today I'm going to show you my kind of basic indoor gardening toolkit. So these are the things that I reach for the most when I'm just generally going around taking care of my plants. So let's get right into the video. Today is a very sunny day, so I apologize if the lighting is a little bit off. This is not a Florida ghost. This is just your regular pedatum and the sun is just very, very bright. So the first thing in my toolkit is a moisture meter. So I have talked about these before on my channel in my How I Water Houseplants video. These are great if you're new to houseplants. These help you figure out whether something is dry or wet or when to water. If you want to watch my How I Water Houseplants video, I will link that here somewhere. But yes, so I still use these pretty regularly. It kind of depends if I have nice nails or not. If my nails are nice, I don't really want to go sticking them in soil deep into pots, so I will generally use this. And also for my deeper pots to see if they are wet at the bottom of the pot or not. So this is one of my main things that I carry around with me when I'm doing my general plant care checks. The next thing is scissors or kind of snips. These are ones I got a couple of months ago and I love them. I like the straight blade, I like how they're really plain. They have a kind of a safety thing here that keeps them closed. So you just take that off and they're very easy to use and I think they look pretty. So those two things, my water meter and this snips, are kind of the main two things that I reach for when I'm going around to care for my plants. So cut off any dead leaves, any, weird looking growth or anything, I will just cut these off with this. So yeah, that's number 2 in the list. So then the rest of these things I don't always reach for, but they still are in my basic toolkit. So the next 2 things I will put together because they kind of go hand in hand, and that is my spray bottle that I have a mix of neem oil and soap and water in this. My recent video on how and why I clean the leaves of my plants, that will explain what this mix is. So I have this spray bottle as well as my microfiber cloth. So I will, have this around if there's any leaves that look like they need a wipe down, if I have any pest issues that I'm isolating, I will have this in my toolkit just already mixed up so that it's easier to reach for. Next up is some twine. So I always have some twine handy if there's any plants that need to be tied up real quick, in particular this squamiferum or my pedatum over here. If there's been a shoot of any new growth that's kind of flopping around and needs to be tied down to a pole, then I use this. So I always have this handy and I'll just cut it with my kind of snips that I have so that I can just kind of do a drive-by tying up. Next up, I usually have some kind of alcohol solution going around. So at the moment we're in a lockdown, so we're kind of restricted with where we can drive to. So I'm trying to use whatever I can find in the house, and I found this very old surgical spirit bottle. So this is the alcohol that I'm using right now, and the reason I have this around is basically to sterilize stuff. When I'm using my snippers in between plants, I will sterilize that in between. I usually just use a piece of tissue or something and just wipe it down. Sometimes it's great to have a spray with this as well. So the reason I do that is to prevent the spread of any pests and also any bacterial or fungal issues that might be going on. I don't want to be easily spreading them to the rest of my plants as I'm trying to take care of them. Now the next thing I don't use as often, but it is still in my main kit. Now you can use a moisture meter for this, but I just have a chopstick. So the reason I have this is to basically, if I'm going around and I see any plants that have really compacted soil, or I feel like the soil is just not aerated enough with perlite or bark or whatever, or if the soil is kind of staying wet for a bit too long, I will use the chopstick, you know, in the soil, and I'll try to aerate it a little bit. That will help the soil to dry out a bit faster. That might prevent any potential root rot situations, and it will provide more aeration into the soil, which also helps in preventing rot, but is good for root growth as well. Now, I do this really gently. I'm not sticking it in, like shaking it up, because that can actually damage the roots of your plants that are in the soil. So I do this very carefully, and I don't do it very often. I kind of do it as I see it. If I see any issues with compacted soil or super wet soil, then I will use it, but I kind of try not to, because yeah, as I said, it can lead to root damage, and you don't want that. Now, the final thing in my kind of basic toolkit. Now, of course, I have more kind of equipment like this that I use for my plants, but this is kind of like in my main basket. This is what I reach for when I'm caring for my plants. But the next thing is not something that I use very often. It's something that I got at the very beginning of my plant journey because I was really interested in looking at pests like close up, and that is a magnifying glass. And this one even has, oh look, you can see the camera and my plants. So this one actually has a light with it. It's very fancy, so it lights up here. And yeah, so I really don't reach for this that much, but sometimes if I have some extra time and either I have some pests going on or have something that I want to look at more closely, then I'll use this. And it's not really, I guess it could be to do with plant care because you're looking close up, you're trying to identify any pests. But mainly it's an interest thing for me. I really like seeing stuff like that up close. I find it really interesting, and sometimes you can learn about your plants using something like this. So yeah, I have it in my main toolkit, but I really don't reach for it that often. It's hard to find the time for stuff like that, but yeah. So guys, that's it. That's my main basic indoor gardening toolkit. These are the things that I reach for most often and that I use most frequently. I know this isn't a lot, but honestly, you really don't need that much. I don't feel like you don't need to be going to buy all of these different things to care for your plants, other than like a watering can and water. These are the main things that I use, and as I said, a lot of these aren't necessary, i.e. magnifying glass. But yes, like my snips and my moisture meter are the main things I use. They're relatively cheap. You can buy really expensive snips, but like I think that cost me $5, and the moisture meter was around $5 as well. You really don't need that much. So this is what I keep to with my basic toolkit. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. And yeah, have a great day, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.